Good day and welcome to Bluewave's webinar series, The Current. Today we're exploring the convergence of several technologies, including AI, cloud, and security, with a very special guest and strategic partner, Robby Gulri, who happens to be the head of the Office of Partner Success at RapidScale, as our guest. Welcome today, Robby.
Tony, man, I appreciate you inviting me. I love doing these with you guys. Blue Wave is one of my favorite partners out there. So looking forward to having a conversation about all the cool technology stuff that's going on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. That's much appreciated. And for those of you that may not know, my name is Tony Scribner, and I'm the VP of Solution Advisory at the Bluewave Technology Group. So let's jump right in if you're good with it.
I'm perfectly good with it, Tony.
So listen, from what you're seeing, what are kind of some of the biggest trends you're seeing in cloud computing adoption and usage today?
Yeah, man, there's so many interesting things going on. I think we all collectively live in a very changing and dynamic world, which excites me and gets me out of bed every morning. But I tell you, what really I'm seeing and hearing and discussing with a lot of the CIOs and CTOs and leaders of businesses out there is this notion of what I'll call the convergence of AI, cloud, and security. So let me elaborate a little bit on that. Um, Obviously, the hot topic these days is AI, generative AI. Can we use large language models? Can we leverage our data to be able to be more insightful and less gut feel? Love all that. But if you think about what AI is, often it starts CEO to CEO conversations about how a business should be enabling AI capabilities. And then often that project gets handed over to, IT leaders in the organization. And really what we try to do and what we're seeing is how do you really take AI first, create a data strategy around it, create a common data lake around that data set or those data sets to be able to then figure out how to converge all this stuff into some operational mode, which inevitably involves some level of cloud. So you got to deploy it into the cloud. And once you're there, you got to make some decisions on how you're going to do data governance, how you're going to secure those workloads. This is your IP and your business's, sort of crown jewels that you're basically enabling on these environments. So it's really this combination or the convergence of AI projects leading to cloud deployment, leading to conversations around security. What I love about this is it really gives advisors and strategists and people who play Yoda, to our customers, the ability to sort of think through the entire ecosystem and not just one aspect of technology.
That's great insight. I appreciate that. When we think backwards a little bit to the cloud adoption curve, right, and how that curve just increased exponentially, now we're hearing terms like repatriation of workloads back away from the cloud. Are you guys seeing that, and how are you doing with that with customers?
Yeah, yeah. First of all, the short answer is absolutely yes. We, we see a lot of things. We saw some accelerated migrations to public cloud. And we continue to see that. Companies are thinking about AWS or Azure or Google. We always try to play an agnostic role. RapidScale has a pretty rich practice across all three of those major hyperscalers. But we're also starting to see conversations and organizations say, listen, maybe that wasn't the perfect move, right? Maybe we need to reevaluate. Maybe we need to look at some kind of hybrid environment. Maybe we need to, look at it as a business unit per business unit basis to be able to make decisions on what workloads fit with the right cloud environments. And so, absolutely, Tony, we're seeing definitely some workloads repatriated. For those of you who are not familiar with that term, it's a very simple term. It means, look, I moved all my stuff into something, and now I need to repatriate it. I need to reallocate it into something else. And so often we're talking about, balancing those workloads to fit the appropriate business models and business outcomes that organizations are looking to see.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So you mentioned the concept of the right workloads in the right cloud, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it just comes down to use cases and needs. So how do you see businesses leveraging the cloud to drive larger initiatives like digital transformation and really improve their
Yeah.
operations?
Yeah, I think we're seeing the shift, and that's not just in 2025. We saw it 2024. We saw it a little bit in 2023. It's this notion of, hey, I've got a lot of data. I own a lot of data. I may not know where all the data is, but I know I have it. And so a lot of work we're doing initially is just educating customers on really the definition of data. Data is structured. It could be unstructured. It could sit in databases. It could be in Excel files. It could be people's inboxes. It could be in PDF files. So there's a lot of wealth of insights to be gained. And so a lot of what's happening, in the digital transformation world is really getting my data in order, merging it, enriching it with third-party data that may be available as an API, it could be available as another third-party data source in some way, and then approaching that set of data, to literally figure out leading indicators around measuring my business successes and KPIs versus a lot of the lagging indicators that we've been doing historically for the last 10 or 20 years in business. So that's really exciting because now all of a sudden, CIOs who've wanted a seat at the table for 30 years, and I'm old, so we've been talking about having a seat at the table along with the CFO and the COO. We've been trying to push that sort of agenda for a while. We finally have a seat at the table. How do we then bring value? It's about leveraging data, leveraging technology to be able to generate really measurable sort of business outcomes. So this is all a real amazing time, to live and kind of work in these days.
Yeah, it certainly is. So we talked a little bit about use cases, right? And
Yeah.
the right workloads going to the right cloud. But we also have to consider industry verticals, right? So when we start to think about things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, the Internet of Things, basically a lot of edge computing, how is this impacting businesses across different industries?
Well, I actually want to take a step back, right? Let's actually go at the 50,000-foot view. The way I see it, Tony, is there's really three things that any business, any vertical, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, pick one, that's trying to basically do in terms of leveraging technology. Number one is do more with less, right? We're all trying to figure out how to gain efficiencies, increase automation, leverage data, all the things that we've talked about so far. So we're trying to do more with less. Can we reallocate employees that are a valuable resource? In fact, 80% of my operating budget often is salaries, right? How can I reallocate those folks to do something more interesting and more compelling? So we're trying to do more with less. That's number one. Number two is how do we delight our customers in ways that we've never thought about before? So it's really goes back to customer experience. It goes back to in our consumer lives, my Gmail just works. My iPhone, generally speaking, just works, right? And so my expectation in the business world is that the technology that I'm using for productivity or CRM or whatever it happens to be just works. So we're trying to basically, as a business, as an IT organization, trying to figure out how to delight, reach, touch our customers in different ways. And thirdly, we're all dealing with this. I know, Tony, I don't know where you are, but I'm sitting here in my home office in Atlanta, Georgia today, and I'm talking to you. Yesterday, I was at the airport. 2 days before, I was at the hotel. So we're all working from all kinds of places. So the third thing that I would say that we're trying to do and figure out technology is this remote distributed workforce and workload, which then leads into your question, which is around, okay, AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, how is that impacting business? Um, Number one is we've been trying to predict things forever, right? That's just in our human DNA. We've been trying to predict the weather or my crappy Atlanta Falcons scores, for a long time. And what we're starting to really see now, and again, very exciting, is the notion of being able to predict much more accurately to give me a competitive leg or a competitive edge to be able to be proactive about my business versus reacting to my business. So imagine if I'm a manufacturer. Let's use that for example as a vertical, and I've got machines and I'm collecting sensor data from the IoT devices on those machines. I'm taking that data, I'm putting it in a model, I'm leveraging the data to be able to say, man, I can predict when that machine's going to break before it does at at 96% sort of prediction rate. Man, that's amazing because now instead of Murphy's Law and sending somebody at 3 in the morning to fix something, I can be a lot more proactive about it. So these are use cases that have been around in manufacturing for a while, and they're starting to sort of cross boundaries into other verticals as well. I know healthcare organizations are thinking through propensity of patient care. They're looking at segmentation based on data of patients. Hey, can I treat patient A and patient B and patient C in ways that are different, unique, and very much targeted for that individual. So we're starting to see personalization and recommendation engines that we're used to in our consumer lives with Netflix and Prime, but we're now starting to see them in the world of business. So it's a again, I get super excited. You almost preachy sometimes about how we can leverage technology to do some cool things.
Well, it is certainly all very exciting, and you touched on something very near and dear to our hearts here at Blue Wave, which is customer experience, right? Which is a practice that we dive into deeply with a lot of our customers. So I certainly appreciate that. You also mentioned the diversity of workforce and where we're working from, where our workloads are, right?
Yeah.
And in the not too distant history past, we were kind of forced to work differently and all work from home and no longer work in the office. Can you maybe give me some examples um, where customers have needed to make shifts to the way that they're doing business and how you're able to help them?
You remember, it seems like Tony, like I don't know, some days it seems like it was 20 years ago, the whole COVID world, right? And
Yes,
some days it seems like it was 4 minutes ago. Uh,
exactly.
but remember what we had to all deal with? All of a sudden, we were hit by this pandemic. We're trying to figure out what our security posture is going to look like. How do we get access to the applications? Sitting from a consumer grade broadband connection in our home offices, like all of those things has shifted the way large enterprises think through workloads as well as distributed sort of workforces. In a way it was good, right? It forced us to basically leverage some technologies. A couple of things that I want to kind of use as an example. The whole notion of VDI, or virtual desktop interface, or DAS, desktop as a service, has been around for a while. But organizations finally started thinking through, wow, this is not just a desktop play. It's not just a desktop technology. It's a security and management opportunity. If I could provide consistent user experience, regardless of what the hardware is and where the hardware is, to my user base, my employee base, I can provision and deprovision users very quickly. I can enable a security posture that's basically, if you will, in a moat, on an island that I can, configure and secure any which way I want. So I know at RapidScale, we've seen a lot of opportunity in the world of DAS that includes Citrix and managed Citrix, as well as the Azure Virtual Desktop environment in vertical markets that you would expect. Healthcare, of course, retail, of course, but also things like call centers. Call centers used to be actual call centers where people would walk in and they would take calls all day. Well, call centers are no longer that. People are sitting all over the world, really, fielding calls. And so if I could enable consistent desktop experience with security and user provisioning capability on the fly, man, that's pretty awesome. So that's an example that I definitely point to. Another example is we're starting to see this more and more is the traditional infrastructure client server model. Hey, I run X machines on a virtual machine, basically that I'm running in my own data center or in my colo. How can I offload that into something more elastic for my business and much more variable so I can basically manage costs? So we're seeing a lot of infrastructure as a service opportunities where companies are like, man, I've been running my own servers and my own VMs for years, and I need to really think through how to enhance that posture. So leveraging not only VM in the cloud, and we provide that at RapidScale, but also looking at certain workloads, and maybe back to how we started this conversation, maybe some of those workloads make sense to be natively on Google Cloud or AWS or Azure, right? So we're seeing a lot of this modernization, we call it, in the area of just allocating the right cloud environments for those right applications and those workloads.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with that. Well, listen, Robby, I want to thank you for being a special guest on today's episode, and I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning into Bluewave's webinar series, The Current, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome, Tony. Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Take care.
Take care.